Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today, we will be connecting with a 29-year-old business development director for Spooner Physical Therapy and a realtor in Arizona who also provides online lifestyle coaching. She used to be a competitive boxer before having her now 8-year-old daughter, and she started bodybuilding 3.5 years ago and fell in love with the structure of prep as it was the one thing she could control in her life on her mission to be confident in her body post-baby. And even though she didn't love being on stage the first time and was told she couldn't be successful in the sport due to severe stretch marks and getting second callouts all at her first show, she did decide that she could do better and prove it to herself, and that she was the only one who would define her success. And this sparked the next 3 years and ultimately 12 shows, a first place, and a pro card win at NPC Universe. This soon-to-be wife and stepmom serves as a powerful example that anything is possible if you put in the work and never give up. Welcome to the show, Chelsea Stonestreet. How are you doing?
Wow, that introduction. Thank you. So good. So excited to be here.
Awesome. Yes, I'm so excited to have you, and you deserve all the introduction because you are killing it. You are a power woman over here.
Thank you. It still really hasn't all set in yet, but I appreciate that.
Of course. Well, I have to ask you if there is something you do or think about or some sort of ritual you have before your heel hits the stage.
I do actually. I'm pretty superstitious. So I stick to my normal routine with every show. And the first thing I do actually, right when I wake up in the morning on show day, is I'll get on YouTube and I just search motivational videos and I'll just sit there for about 20 to 30 minutes and I'll watch some of these clips of just athletes getting prepared for their game day or whatever it may be, and just really sit there and reflect. So show day is actually a big reflection day for me. That's really where I just look back on everything I did to get to that point. And it's tough because during the prep, for me anyways, I'm just so almost overly focused on what I'm doing, and I get really caught up in the process, and I'm just putting in the work, doing what I need to do. So for me, show day is like that time where I can just take a breath and say, okay, I made it here. Look at all this hard work I did to get here, and just really enjoy that part of it. So I do that. And then definitely envisioning, I sit there and envision what it will be like on stage, the judging panel, where my fiance and my coach will be sitting in the crowd, who I will see the second I get off stage, what my coach's feedback will be. I envision every little part of that. And then I also listen to my favorite posing song, and I can't even tell you how this became my posing song, but it's Fantasy by Mariah Carey. And I put that on and I really listen to it on repeat kind of throughout the whole day and before I get on stage. And it just kind of puts me in the mood of like, okay, I'm getting ready to go do this. And then as soon as I'm lining up to get on stage, I say a quick little prayer, and that's kind of my whole little show day routine. I stick to it. So every single show, it's kind of the same thing.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Like the consistency there and the immersion into the journey is so cool. And I have a feeling there's going to be people listening who are like, I need to start doing that, or wow, that part really resonates with me. So I wouldn't be surprised if you got some, people reaching out for some of those motivational video links too.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be happy to share too.
Yeah, because that's just so cool that you do that every single time. And I think this is interesting, especially because when you first stepped on stage, you actually didn't love it at all. And so I'm curious if that's evolved or if you feel differently about it now.
It's totally evolved. I love being on stage now. But it's very true. I did not like it at first. I mean, coming from the background of being a boxer, I was used to getting hyped up to get into a ring and, preparing my mind mentally that, okay, I'm about to get hit. I'm about to throw some punches. Like it's a different type of hype. And so when I got on stage for the first time, I mean, I was insecure with my body. I had, just had a baby, and I didn't love being in a bikini and having my family in the audience. I mean, at that point in my life, after having my daughter so young, I really didn't even like wearing a bikini to the pool. And so much less getting on stage. It wasn't fun for me at first. I didn't enjoy that part. It was more of like, okay, I need to push myself out of my comfort zone because I don't want to live my whole life this way. So at first, being on stage was just so uncomfortable and just so out of my typical comfort zone, my personality. Even I've always been very modest. I didn't really like showing my body off. So it was just very different for me. But over time, as I've just fallen in love with the sport and the whole process, the stage now is, I mean, I can't wait to get up there. I can't wait. So it definitely has evolved, definitely.
Oh my gosh. So it's actually really interesting you say that you were a competitive boxer before and you were used to like getting hyped up before going out there. Like, yeah, I'm going to take some punches, I'm going to throw some. And now you really do kind of take yourself through a hype up ritual, even if it's different than, going into a boxing ring. So I was actually really curious about your boxing career and how that maybe supported you, or that competitive part of it supported you in the pursuit of your pro card and in bodybuilding in general.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I actually credit boxing, that part of my life, to so much of why I am where I am today. Just because getting in a ring and subjecting yourself to that in front of hundreds of people is a big thing. And so I actually, along my life, whether it's a job interview or prep or a difficult moment in life, I always compare it to getting in the ring. I say, I really have that conversation with myself that says, okay, you could get into a boxing ring with hundreds of people watching you, getting punched in the face with the potential of, knockout in front of these people. You can really do anything else. So I use that to compare it to other things. And so that's the conversation I had with myself when I did decide to get on stage for the first time. It's like, okay, Chelsea, you were able to get into a ring. You can definitely throw on a bikini, put some makeup on, and get on stage. And that's really has helped me to get out of comfort zones and to do things, because I just tell myself, if you could do that, you could do this. And it's helped me push myself and take some risks in life that maybe otherwise I wouldn't have.
Oh, yes. And was this part of that inspiration of like proving to yourself what it meant to like redefine success, or even just define success for yourself as a whole? Like, did that influence what that meant for you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, um, I think the process and what happens mentally in any sport, really, but for me, particularly in boxing, I mean, it's a very mental pursuit, and it's individual, and you get down to moments of training for a fight, just like you do in a prep, where, I mean, you just don't know if you can go any further. And that process of really having to dig deep and push a little further when you don't think you have anything left, that to me is where my strengths come out. And when I do have to dig deeper and fight a little bit more, that's where I tend to shine. And I found that prepping for a show, I had those same uh, feelings I did when I was prepping for a fight. So I was starting to get that same type of joy out of prep that I did in boxing. And then when I hit the stage, I did starting to feel that that hype I was talking about of getting into the ring. I started feeling that same hype of getting onto the stage. And so now when I get off, I get the same adrenaline rush I did when I'm stepping out of the ring. So I really found a lot of synergistic elements between the two that helped me helped that evolvement of being able to really enjoy the stage.
Wow, I think that's really amazing because I was hoping you would cover some of those parallels, and I'm really glad that you did. And I know you had stopped fighting when you had your daughter. So, what inspired you to stop, or what led you to stop? And have you ever considered going back?
Yes and no. So I love the sport. That is my first love. Um, but at the same time with boxing, uh, realistically, and I don't want to offend anybody, but getting punched in the head is probably not the best for yourself intellectually long term. And so I always loved that sport, and I definitely wanted to go far. And I could have taken that route and kept going after I had her, but um, being a single mom, I really had to weigh the fact of the injury and the long-term toll it would take mentally and physically just on my health. And so I definitely loved the sport, the process. I still do it. I still have a speed bag and a heavy bag hung up in my garage, and I love hitting the bag. It's my therapy. But as far as getting back into the ring, I don't think I would, just because of the injury potential. And I want to be here as long as I possibly can for my daughter, my family too.
Oh, yeah, I love that so much. Like, you're still able to enjoy it, but just at a different capacity, and you found so much fulfillment and joy and that adrenaline rush in bodybuilding now. And you said you still have your speed bag and the big bag in the garage. Do you use that for cardio ever?
So I do at the beginning of my preps, but my coach, Ray, and my bodywork guy, Dom, they have both told me several times that I need to ease off of the bag during prep and for cardio. So my coach does allow it in the beginning, but as I get closer, we try to stay away from that, just because uh, I can overdo it. So I kind of get into it a little too much, and we want to preserve as much muscle as we can throughout the prep. And so there's certain ways I can incorporate it. So if I do it more of a HIIT training where I'm hitting 1 minute intensely, resting 30 seconds and going back, I can do that for a little bit, but ultimately we do cut it out probably about 8 to 10 weeks before a show.
Wow. Okay. I mean, that's really insightful alone. I'm wondering if there's anything else you do differently between off season and prep, like from a training perspective, from a nutrition perspective. How does your approach vary?
Oh, I mean, it changes a lot, obviously, as you're getting ready for a show. You're trying, at least for me, I actually put on muscle very easily. So when I'm getting ready for a show, it's always a cutting phase for me, to where an off season is more calories, heavier lifting, and then the prep consists of cutting. So I'm doing a lot of HIIT cardio and trying to get my fat down more so than in the prep.
Definitely. And you said, in your improvement season, you do focus a lot on like heavier lifting and, of course, eating in a caloric surplus. So I've been asking this question on the podcast, and I'd love for you to answer it for us, which is, if you could only pick one exercise for hamstrings, one for glutes, and one for shoulders, what exercise would you pick for each for the rest of your life?
Oh my gosh, the rest of my life. Okay. Shoulders, I love lateral raises. Um, they're amazing. And I think most people, I actually learned this from my coach, Ray, and like I mentioned earlier, my bodywork, Dom. Uh, there's, I've been doing laterals the wrong way for the longest time, and I had no idea. So they corrected me, and my form now has really helped to bring out my delts a lot more. So I love lateral raises. For hamstrings, I would say laying hamstring curls. And then, of course, the time under tension. So doing them really slow. I really focus on the negative for that.
Yes.
And then for glutes, definitely the hip thrusts. And I know probably everybody says that, but it's all in the hip thrust for the glutes.
Yeah, every once in a while we get like a donkey kick back in there, but Your answers are literally the same exact as mine. Like I would choose,
Really?
oh yeah, I would choose all of those too. And in the same way, except for the lateral raises, I don't know exactly what form you might be referring to. I think I might, but I want to hear from you. Like, are you doing pinkies up? Are you doing thumbs up? Are you doing like what kind of lateral raises are you doing?
Yeah, so I'm doing pinkies up, thumbs down. It's like you're
Mhm.
pouring out a gallon of water. But for the longest time, and this is why I have such big traps, partly why I'm so trap dominant because I don't isolate the muscle the right way. And so it's so crazy that just little movements and directions can change the way you're hitting a muscle. But for the longest time, I really was doing a lateral raise, but it was targeting my trap.
Yeah.
So I was doing them so wrong. And so now that they've corrected just little movements, now I'm actually hitting my delt the right way. So it's good.
I love that. I feel like it's amazing how we're always learning and evolving as athletes, and there's no one who can't learn more, right? Like we're always able
Absolutely.
to learn and grow and progress, and I just think that's well, that's just super cool, of course, and the fact that you have experts helping you do that. And I know you yourself are a coach. So how do you
Mhm.
support your clients in maybe figuring out the best exercises for themselves, or like finding the perspective on lifestyle type training?
Yeah, well, I definitely do target a lot of lifestyle clients, and my goal with them is really just to get up and moving. I actually incorporate a lot of circuit style training with them, a lot of body weight exercises, especially now with limited access to the gym, or a lot of my clients aren't really even comfortable going into the gym. So I definitely like to incorporate body weight circuit training just because really that's the core of movement and what we're doing anyway. And you can do it anywhere. So that's really the key right now.
Totally. I love that. And it's amazing because like I always think it's great when athletes are coaches themselves and then also have coaches themselves, because
Oh,
it shows
totally.
we all can use, support and insight from other people. And I think it helps us grow as athletes, as professionals, and as coaches. And something that stood out to me was kind of the different looks you brought to your shows over the years.
Hmm.
But let's kind of go back to just feedback and evolution from when you started. And with the exception of one show, you always placed in the top 10, which is really amazing. And so, how has your feedback evolved over the years as you've evolved in the sport?
Sure. A ton actually. So initially it was bringing my legs down. I had bigger legs. And it was very hard for me to get those conditioned. So at first it was that, and I worked really hard to bring them down, and that consisted of a lot less heavy lifting and more those body weight exercises, circuit training, a lot of sprints, and then the last few shows, and I'm speaking specifically this year for I did North American national show. I placed I placed third my first time competing at North Americans, which was also my first national show. And then I did it this year and placed fifth. So my placings for me, I'm like, oh no, I messed up. I placed further away from where I needed to be. But for that show, I came in actually too lean. And that was the first time I'd ever heard that. It was always that I needed to come
Wow.
in more, I needed to bring my legs down, or I needed to be a little bit more conditioned. But in this case, I was actually too lean, too conditioned. And so I was actually able to feed myself a little bit more into the next show, which was interesting. So it's definitely varied over time to where I needed to bring stuff down, and then, oh no, I needed to fill back out.
Okay, I'm actually really glad to hear this has been your experience, only because I imagine there, because right now people are finishing up their seasons, they're coming out of their shows, whether they earn their pro card, they just stepped on stage for the first time, maybe they've got in, maybe they've stepped on the national stage like 10 times, nothing's happened
Mm-hmm.
yet. And I think what's going through a lot of people's minds is, I got this different feedback, or I got feedback, and some people get frustrated with it, or like, oh, I keep
Yeah.
missing the mark. what would you say to someone who maybe is getting mixed feedback from show to show to encourage them like they will nail it eventually like you did?
Yeah, sure. Well, definitely trust your coach. It's so, so important to have a good coach that has that outside eye to say, okay, here's what you need to do. Of course, you want to incorporate the judge's feedback too, but when you're doing that and you're getting mixed feedback, it's really hard to decide, okay, what direction do I need to go? And that's really where your coach comes in and can say, okay, here's the 3 different feedbacks we've gotten. Here's what we need to do. And you need to go execute. So it's really important to have a good team of people that can really identify where you need to go based on the competition, based on the division, and create a game plan that you execute. So it's just, I would say, I mean, keep going for one. And it is frustrating to get mixed feedback because it's like, okay, well, what do I do now? But if you have a good coach, they should know your body. They should be very well versed in the sport and the direction of the division. And you guys can create a game plan together and get to work.
I love how you use the word execute. Like execute on the game plan that is created by a coach you trust and with a coach you trust. And
Mm-hmm.
I love this word because I think it really drives home the point of like if you love and respect the sport, you'll be willing to keep going even despite varying feedback or despite like
Yeah.
that frustration that sometimes can come from it, like, oh, putting in all this work and effort. So when you were executing on the game plan, what do you think were some of the key changes that you made in those 2 months? You said you were feeding into the show really between
Mm-hmm.
like this year's North Americans and then Universe that ultimately landed you where you wanted to be?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard mentally, and I've heard a lot of other bikini athletes talk about it the same way of, okay, well, now I'm reducing cardio, I'm eating a little bit more. Mentally, you're thinking, oh, I'm going the opposite direction. What am I doing? But it's really, again, just trusting the process. And this is an individual sport, which I love about that. But it also takes a village. It takes a team of people. And so you have your team, you've created the game plan, and that's where that execution comes in because the execution part is on you. And that's really where you have to put your head down and just do the work. It's called bodybuilding for a reason, right? You're building your body. So I love getting feedback because I'm getting a different perspective from somebody else that says, hey, you really actually need to fill out more, where I might look in the mirror and be like, oh, I'm perfect the way I am. Like, this is great. I'm gonna go, I'm gonna win my pro card. This is awesome. Well, maybe not to somebody else. So I just think it's really important to take that feedback, take the game plan, and put your head down and work.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I just everything you said was so it just resonated with me. Like I'm smiling
Mm-hmm.
about it because I felt this like fire when I got to talk to Sandy for the first time after USA's.
Yes, I saw that picture you posted too. I was like, yes, I love that you got that captured.
I can't believe JM did that. I was like, oh my God, like that is so cool. I'll never forget that moment. And then to have like the photo of it was like, it just really captured how it was feeling, like really eager to know like how could I improve. And you just have that like when you get that feedback, it lights something up in you because as an athlete, you are seeking ways to improve. It's part of like the beauty of bodybuilding, like you said, like building this body. But that feedback, it's sometimes like I don't know, it just gives you it's like a pre-workout. I don't know. It's just
Yes, yeah,
I can't
and it
describe.
no, I know exactly what you're saying, and it should. I mean, uh, as humans, I think it's hard in general for us to accept critiquing in any type of way. But as soon as you learn to not think of it as a critique, but just think of it as advice on how to progress to the next level, it's like, wow, it's you hang on every word. And just like you did with Sandy when you met her for the first time, it's like, what is her perspective of me, and what can I do to progress to the next level? And you want to hear what every word she has to say, because you can take that and bring it back to your coach and to the drawing board, and now you have something else to strive for.
Exactly. And it's actually like interesting too because I was just talking with a friend about how people sometimes view this sport of bodybuilding like, oh, you're being critiqued and judged by these people on your body, but it's not so much about that as it is like us striving for this criteria, this look, or it's like that. It's just this growth that we're
Yes.
after. And I think that that's a key distinction, is seeing it as advice. And I also really like how you point out, like, you go back to the drawing board and you build on it. And I remember when I was a volleyball player, and I'm sure you can relate to this with boxing as well, but it was like, if I was first string, let's say, for weeks and weeks, and suddenly my coach took me out of first string and I wasn't starting, I'll be like, coach, like, what can I do to be better? Right? That's always the
Yes.
question. How can I be better so you see me worth putting in first? And sometimes the feedback would be, oh, we actually want you to like finish out the game for us, right? And like,
Mm-hmm.
or, oh, your serve, usually performs really well at this time. Okay, interesting. It's feedback. But as an athlete, you're driven and motivated a lot of times by that growth. And I think, something with bodybuilding, specifically in the bikini division, is it goes beyond the physique as well. Like, there's suit color, hair, makeup. There's things that
Mm-hmm.
really are detail oriented. So you had personally changed up your suit color a few times. And how did you finally decide or know which one would really help you stand out, if you feel like that made a difference at all?
Yeah, I actually really do. And my coach, I've gone through a couple coaches, and I've landed here with my coach now with Lifestyle Physiques. And he's the first coach I've had that even cared about what suit color I was wearing. So
Mm.
he has a lot to do when we're deciding on shows and talking about strategy. He's very big on suit color, and you kind of have to run it by him first of, hey, do you approve of this color? Because it does matter. It's all about,
Mhm.
especially in the bikini division, one of the main criteria is your presentation and your stage presence. And the judges have a tough job as it is already when it comes down to placing the athletes. And if it comes down to you and another girl, and it could come down to that of, okay, who has that overall package that just shines a little bit more? And suit color definitely plays a part of that. So I did play around with a few different colors. And I've ultimately landed on red. I think that is my my color, but I did try to do an emerald green this year, North Americans. And even my coach now says, because he wasn't a fan of it, and I really was pushing it. I'm like,
Yeah.
we did red all of last year. Let's just try something different. And he was like, okay, but he really wasn't that sold on it. And I remember him saying after North Americans, he's like, oh, like, I should have just stuck with my gut. We should have done red.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did. And I look back on pictures and I could see where he's coming from. It's not that it looked bad. I mean, no colors. It's not that they don't look great. It's just one of those little minor details of like, hey, if I had a different color, maybe I would have stood out a little bit more.
Yes, totally. And like, okay, there's a few directions I want to take this conversation now, because my brain is like going a million miles a minute as we're talking about it, because I just love this stuff. I think it's so awesome.
Yeah.
But, ultimately now you're in red, you've decided on red. Are you going to always keep the same like crystals and color red, or are you going to mix that up?
I think I'll change it up a little bit. And honestly, I don't think I'm destined for red forever. I would like to play around with it and see what other colors might pop or, bring a good presentation. But as far as my placings and my success on stage, I feel like I've done better in red. So I'll definitely play around with it, probably try a few different suits and gems and different colors. But I definitely like red.
Totally. That's awesome. I think it's fun to like play around with it for sure. And you did go straight from your pro card win to your pro debut. So
I
what
do.
were you focusing on in that, short period of time?
Oh my gosh. Well, focus is a hard word for me because at that point I just was so excited that I finally got my pro card. And like I said, I still haven't even really processed it, but I actually wanted to do that specific show um, for my pro debut, regardless of where it was. So even when it moved to Vegas, I really wanted to to do that show, just because last year I had competed in that show as an amateur and I won my first overall. And so I thought it would be really cool to come full circle the next year and make my pro debut. But after talking to my coach about it a little bit and just the long year we've had, because I've been on prep since January, he just kind of said, hey, let's call it a year. Enjoy your pro win. My fiance also got his pro card at North Americans this year. So we both just got our pro
Oh my
cards, and he's like,
gosh, that's
yeah. And
awesome.
we have the same coach. So he's like, you guys just go, it's time to call it a year. Go plan your wedding, enjoy, whatever. But then a few days later, I had seen on Instagram that the Wings of Strength show had been moved back to Arizona, which it was originally. And I was like, okay, this is a sign. I have to do it. So I sent the post to my coach right away and I said, call me as soon as you can. And so he calls and I'm like, Coach, I just feel like this is a sign. Can we please do this?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, all right. He's like, if it's here in our own backyard, might as well. And so it really was, and I didn't really have any expectations going into that show. It's more so of just, I really wanted to make my pro debut with that show anyway. It was right here at home. I didn't have to spend any extra money on hotel and travel and all that stuff. So we just went full force and wanted to do it for fun and just to see where I stacked up against the other pros and get to experience it. So it was a lot of fun.
That is so cool. I love that it's just like that evolution again and being able,
Yeah.
I'm sure like at that pro debut, you're doing your like pre-stage ritual, you're waking up in the morning, you're reflecting on your whole entire journey and you're like, wow, I got here. And you did that, despite some of the criticism you'd received when you very first started. And you had talked about how you were really trying to find confidence with your stretch marks. And there's a lot of women who look up to you or admire and appreciate that you own them with confidence now. Did you ever receive like feedback or criticism regarding that?
So it's funny. No judge has actually ever pointed it out to me, but I know it's an unspoken thing. I know that it has come into play for a couple of my placings just because when I first started there was a lot of extra skin there too. It's tightened up over time, but I know that was a factor. But more recently I started seeing one of my local pros here, actually, her name's TJ, and she does micro needling on my stomach. And so last year and this year, I don't even know how many sessions we've done. I want to say 25. But she micro needles my stomach every 3 to 4 weeks. And that's really helped with the tightening and then narrowing down, the coloring of them too. So now when I step on stage and I have my tan, you can't really see it. But actually, no judge has ever told me this is why you didn't place. But it's kind of just one of those things I've known probably set me apart from the other girls.
So interesting. And what inspired you to go and get micro needling and work on the coloring of them? Like, how did you know that those things might help?
So she actually approached me on the micro needling. I had no idea what to do. I thought, okay, maybe the only way I even have a chance is if I go and get a tummy tuck, or I don't know. I just knew that I didn't want that to set me back. I didn't want an insecurity of my own, to stop me from pursuing something I really wanted to do. So I just kept telling myself there has to be a way. I have to be able to work through this. And then she had approached me and said, hey, have you ever thought of microneedling? It could help with the color and the tightness of the skin. And I'm like, well, let's try it. And it's helped. I mean, it's helped tremendously.
Wow, that's so amazing. Like just the fact that we've come to this point where there's all these different tools and things we can use, and it's obviously supported you not just from a competing perspective, but it sounds like it's maybe helped you in how you think about your stretch marks. Is there anything else you've done to support you in becoming more at peace with them, or maybe that you've encouraged other women to consider when they're maybe beating themselves up for it?
Absolutely. I just think, I mean, I look at them now and I'm just like, okay, I created a life,
Mm-hmm.
and my daughter is the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me. So I'm for me to beat myself up over a physical appearance when I have the most beautiful, perfect little girl, you know, for the rest of my life, it's just one of those things. I came to the realization of this isn't everything. And I was able to have a baby and I'm so grateful for that. And for me to beat myself up over how my body's changed after isn't fair to the blessing of being a mom. And that's kind of how I've justified it in my own mind.
Wow, that's a beautiful testament, and sounds like you've come like a long way with the acceptance of that. And I love that you could share that with us. And of course, I really actually want to hear your perspective because you just went to the 2020 Olympia. You watched the show. You were there in person in the audience. So there's a few different things I would love to ask you about. But first of all, how does it feel to you, or maybe does it feel like anything, to see a mother win the title?
Unreal,
Hmm.
actually. And actually got to run into Janet while I was there and had a really great conversation with her. And uh, yeah, to know that it's possible. Again, I look back on my journey of getting on stage for the first time and doing it just to get out of my comfort zone and help myself gain confidence. And then fast forward, and I'm here now, and I was at the Olympia, and I did see a mom take the title. It just goes to show that you can really do anything you set your mind to. And I know that's such a cliche statement, but if you really dissect those words, I mean, you can do anything you set your mind to. You just have to be willing to put in the work and not give up.
I love that. No, that's for sure. I 100% believe that too. And there's so many positive examples and powerful examples of this. I mean, most humans are representative of this, it's just, are we willing to acknowledge and embrace that for ourselves? And I love that that's something that you've been able to do, but also that you recognize in others when you see it. And you had mentioned your daughter is the greatest blessing in your life, and you've had to raise her on your own. And now you are merging families with your fiance's family. So I would love
Mm-hmm.
if you could maybe open up about your experiences in single motherhood, and then how things have changed since meeting your now fiance, and then bringing the families together.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been quite the journey, actually. So, I mean, for a long time, it was just me and my daughter, and it was just kind of like this little bond we had. And I didn't know what the future held for me. If I was gonna, I kind of had this preconceived notion that I was going to be a single mom forever, and it was going to be hard. But um I went from a place of, it just being her and I, and she went with me everywhere. We did everything together. And then meeting my fiance and then being introduced to his kids was just, I mean, life changing, really, because honestly, if I'm being completely open, I was really scared to be a stepmom and to open myself as a mom to other kids. And once I did, though, and I opened my mind and my heart to embracing more family, it's just put me in a completely different position. I'm just so grateful to have the ability to influence other kids, and uh, for my daughter to have siblings and a stepdad. And it's just been an experience that it still feels unreal. Just like winning my pro card, I look back to a few years ago of me and my daughter living in our house together and having our own little routine. And now I'm in this big, beautiful house with three bonus kids, a fiance. My daughter's happier than ever. It's just, I just look back and I'm overwhelmed with gratitude of how, I can't believe I'm here. Like, thank you. I just want to say thank you all the time because I'm just overwhelmed with where my life has gone in a
Wow.
great way.
That's amazing to go from like having that, concern or apprehension, or like, what does that actually look like or mean, to then oh my gosh, this is unfolded into something so much more beautiful than seems like you could have imagined before. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that when you did, get proposed to and you got engaged, your daughter was super stoked, it looked like from the video. So what's like, how has it been to from her perspective maybe, or what you've noticed in her since merging the families as well?
Yeah, she's grown quite a bit. So like I said, I because it was just her and I, we just had this weird bond. I mean, not weird,
Mhm.
but just a very different bond. Especially because when it was just her and I kind of I'm very independent and I tend to be closed off sometimes. Especially back then. I was just in this weird circle of routine of get up, go to work, go to gym, spend my time with her at night, to where now we've just opened and expanded our life by so much that I can just see it in her. She's so happy. Like if you know me and you know my daughter, I mean, she rarely doesn't have a smile on her face. And I know that that's a reflection of the environment she's in. She hit it off with my fiance's kids from day one, which was, as a parent, is a scary thing, to introduce her to other kids, to a man that I'm dating. And I couldn't have asked for it to go better. They all get along. I mean, knock on wood, they rarely fight. And it just, she's a reflection of the environment, and that gives me more confidence knowing I'm going the right direction, I'm making the right decisions, and I'm putting her in a place to be successful herself as she gets older.
That's really awesome. Like that, you guys both evolved together and now as a family as well. And like you said, being an example, supporting her, becoming her best version of herself as well. And you are managing so many different roles, right? Like professional, coach, business developer, realtor, mom. So, how do you prioritize your time, and how has it since changed? Because before you said it was very independent. Now, how have things shifted?
Oh, that's a great question. And that probably was the hardest thing for me to transition into, because I wasn't used to that and I didn't really know how to do that. Um, but I just have had to learn, like you said, to prioritize. So, what's important? So, one of the things as a family that we're very consistent on is dinner time. So, we always have dinner around the same time and we're always eating all together. And that's important for us because it's just, again, that prioritizing of quality time, especially with a bunch of different roles. And then my fiance also is, very busy, and he goes to the gym just as much. And so we value our family time a lot. And we make that time for us all to spend together. And my biggest rule at the dinner table is no cell phones. My fiance is a little bit older than me, so his kids are older. So they're all, um, attached to the phones all the time. But dinner time is that hour where we're all together, no distractions, and we get that quality time. But it definitely is hard to manage a bunch of different things. It just comes down to prioritizing, and what's important. And sometimes different things take precedence depending on the situation. So when we're both in prep, obviously some prep scenarios take precedence over other things, and then it just kind of shifts depending on what position we're in at the time. So now we're getting ready for our wedding. So prep obviously isn't as big of a thing, and we're planning wedding stuff and holidays and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I appreciate you like painting that difference for us and how it was a bit of a transition for you as well. And something that you said was you all have dinner together. Like that's like the one thing. So do you, because obviously you're both bodybuilders. So now I'm wondering, what does dinner time together look like on prep versus now in more of a lifestyle improvement season?
Yeah, so my fiance and I still really stick to our meal prep, whether we're on prep or in our off season. There are occasions where we'll eat the same things as the kids, but typically it's him and I eating our meals out of our Tupperwares, and then making a separate meal for the kids. And then occasionally we do all eat the same thing. But most of the time that's kind of the direction we go. But our kids love our prep food too. So I mean, I can't tell you how many times they request ground beef and rice for dinner. So it makes it
Yeah.
easy for us.
Oh my gosh, and it must put things in perspective too. Like, wow, this is actually very enjoyable food. Like people
Yeah.
who aren't seeing it necessarily for like goal orientation can also see it as like, oh, it's delicious, it's enjoyable, and I think that that's really cool. And I love it when there's people out there who can share like you can do both, you can do it all. And in your case, you're working, like I said, as a professional in different roles in different areas, different industries. So what do you like about doing each of those different things? You know, realtor, business developer, coach.
Yeah. I mean, they all have different things that I love about them. I would say that my business development role with the physical therapy company, that's my top priority as far as jobs go. So that's a full-time, 9 to 5 job. And then the real estate and coaching kind of comes in on the side and after hours. And I do those really because I love them. And for real estate, I mean, I bought my first house when I was 22, and I remember at that time, being a single mom and buying my first home, what a process that was for me. And I just wanted to help other people that thought maybe they couldn't do that and help them find a way to achieve that. And same thing with the coaching. It's like, I think I got my training certificate about 6, 7 years ago. And it was right around the time I had just gotten, back into my journey with fitness, and I wanted to help other people be able to achieve the same things. So I would say those two roles are more of my passion. And I mean, I love working for the company I work for. Also, I get fulfilled by each one in a different way.
Yeah, that's super cool. I actually really like how you said much of it's come from experience as well and wanting to give that experience to others. So I would love, and you don't have to if you want to or if you can't, but I would love to hear like maybe 3 considerations or things people who are looking to buy a home, but maybe are like, oh, can I, or is it time yet? And they're first time home buyers, should consider before doing so.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, I always like to ask people, well, what are you paying in rent right now? And where's that money going? Because I guarantee you can get into a house for the same amount you're paying for rent or less, and it's an investment. So I definitely think that analyzing your current situation and where your money's going is important. 2, digging in and finding out really what it costs. So getting in touch with the lender and finding out, because I think people are just apprehensive because they probably don't know financially what it consists of. And so talking to a lender and finding out that side of things really tends to ease people's mind of, oh, I didn't realize I could actually make this happen. And 3, just like any other goal, make it a goal. So maybe your financial situation isn't where it should be at the moment, but doesn't mean that it can't be. And I would highly recommend anyone who is renting create the goal to own at some point, because it truly is an investment. And at least when you're paying that monthly mortgage, it's going towards something versus renting and throwing that money out the window.
I really appreciate you sharing that. I know it's like different, but I haven't had the chance to ask that on this podcast. And I think these are
Yeah.
practical life insights that are very important to consider because it's not all bodybuilding, as much as
Yep.
maybe we'd like it to be. There's other things that really matter. And I think finding ways to find peace of mind or invest or feel confident in the choices we're making in life is great. And having professionals like you who can share insight in that is awesome. So I do appreciate you doing that for us. And
Yeah, no problem.
yeah, absolutely. So I want to know just kind of really quickly what some of your best memories as an amateur athlete were, and then what some of your goals are now as a pro.
Yeah. So, gosh, my best memories, just the anticipation and the thrill of the chase. And I remember I got a few different people gave me that advice when it came to getting the pro card is, hey, you really need to stop and enjoy this process of the chase, because as soon as you get your pro card, you're starting all the way from the bottom again. And I look back and my best memories are just the anticipation and envisioning the moment of when I was going to win my pro card, and everything that led up to it. So just not taking any of the process for granted, and enjoying every piece you can. And then I would say my goals, I mean, this might be a little presumptuous, but especially after being at the Olympia this weekend, like most pros, my next goal is to qualify for the Olympia. I want to be up on that stage.
Heck yeah. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You were able to achieve your pro card. You're obviously meant to be at the pro level, and that's a pro goal, a pro aspiration. And I think that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Speak it into existence and go after it, right? Like you said, execute.
Yep, exactly. I texted my coach actually while I was there, and I said, I want to be on this Olympia stage. So whatever we need to do to get there, you tell me.
Yes. I love that. I love that so much because it shows like your commitment to your goals. And I think some people are afraid of voicing their goals out loud and saying it, or telling their coach, like, I want to go pro, or I want to step on a national stage, or I want to, go to the Olympia. And it's like, if we can't voice our goals, we got to find out where that resistance is to doing so.
Right.
And I think it's awesome you were able to do that. And as you know, I like to kind of wrap episodes up by going into your best advice. And you've given us a lot of great advice here. And I know we talked a little bit about advice earlier as well, but what would your best advice be for someone who's never competed before, but's thinking about it, and then someone who is on their road to pro?
Sure. I would say for the person out there that is considering competing, I would say try it. Go for it. You might love it, you might hate it, but at least you'll know. So if you're on the fence, I say go for it and see how you like it. And then other advice, I think I probably said this 6 times on the podcast, but you can do anything you set your mind to. Just keep going. And I have to say, even when I met with Janet this weekend and was talking to her a little bit, I asked her the same question. And I said, what's your advice to me, being a new pro and my future in the sport? And she said the same thing. She said, never give up. She said, it's taken me 6 years. And she said, I can't stress that enough. And I agree. And I say that to people all the time, but you just got to keep going. And it's never going to be easy, but it'll always be worth it. So keep going.
Yes, love that advice. And it totally, reinforces what you just said about embracing the chase too, like really falling in love with that execution. So
yep.
I appreciate your advice here. And of course, I want people to be able to connect with you and reach out to you and even tag us in their main takeaways. So can you give them the best way to do that?
Yes, I would say definitely my Instagram is probably the best way to get a hold of me. And my Instagram handle is Chelsea, CHELSEA, Rose. And then of course, _ IFBB Pro, because you got to update the name when you get your pro card. It's kind of a thing.
I know, I've been thinking about that. I'm like, oh, is that something I'm going to do? I don't know. It's like a whole branding thing too, but that's the point.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I appreciate that. I'll put all of that in the show notes page, which you guys can always find on celestial.fit/podcast. If you're listening to this right away, Chelsea's episode will be right at the top. If you're listening to this in the future, go to the category section and you'll find her name there. It's all in alphabetical order. And you'll be able to see the full episode notes, timestamp. So if you want to go back to when she shared what she did for stretch marks, or how it felt to merge families, or what she does right before the stage, you can definitely see that in the episode timestamps there. And make sure you tag us, share it with your friends.
Yes.
Let us know your takeaways. I personally love seeing it. I know the athletes love seeing it. So that would be awesome. And Chelsea, thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
I
really appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. And I hope that you all listening have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode.